Welcome to Cashman's Garage. I'm Justin, and today we're going to be adjusting the coilover suspension, changing out some lug nuts, and replacing a left front axle on this 04 Acura TSX. Should be a whole lot of fun. Let's get started. So the first step, we need to get this thing up into the air. Now, usually I like to use my quick jack, but this thing is low, and I mean really low. But it looks like I can fit my little scissor jack here. So we're going to put some air on this baby and get her up. All right, here we go. Nothing good. Next up, we got to take off the wheel. We're going to need a spline drive key. Now, he was missing his old one, so we end up buying a new set of lugs. Just happens to fit. So we're going to pop these off and take a look at what's behind the wheel. Well, now that the wheel's off, we get a clearer picture of what we're looking at here. So this is what we're going to be adjusting. We're going to take a couple measurements here in a few minutes, but I think the first things first, look at that mess! Wow! Alright, the boot is pretty much completely missing. Sprayed a bunch of grease everywhere. This thing definitely needs an axle. So let's knock this one out. So before we deal with all that axle nonsense, we're going to take a good measurement here. Now I'm measuring to this 3-inch mark. It looks like a pretty good spot to start. So I'm going to take our tools here, and we're going to lower or loosen this. Once this is loose, we can take these guys and spin her up. Should be nothing to it. Alright, this guy here, I'll hook it right up. It's a little tough one-handed. Put a little leverage on this baby. So far, so good. Take our bigger guy here, and we're going to start twisting this. Now, it seems to be moving, which is definitely good. But again, this is very tough one-handed. So, I'm just going to adjust this thing, and we're going to call it good. Probably took a few measurements in the process. There really was nothing to it. That spun nice and easy. Make sure that the whole thing is twisting. And then make sure you tighten up this bottom guy here when you're done. But yeah, you're going to want to make sure this whole guy is spinning when you're moving this top one. And that's how you raise your coils. So the first step to doing these axles, we're going to take a little screwdriver bit here, stick it in this little slot, and try to bink this thing up a little bit. Once we do that, we're going to use this big old socket here. It's a 35mm. Stick it on, blast it off with a gun. Just take all but a sec. Well, we're making progress. That went really easy. And it moves, which is also good. Sometimes these guys get stuck. You got to pull the whole spindle assembly off and stick it in a press. Today is not that day. Now there's a couple of other things I noticed here. Whoever worked on this last, didn't hook up a lot of this stuff, you know. We got a couple wires hanging. That's for your ABS sensor. This obviously your caliper hose. So I might be working some zip ties into this a little bit later, but we still got to figure out how to get this axle the rest of the way out. Now I'm looking back here, and it looks like we might just have to take the bottom of this coil over and unbolt it from the bottom. So it looks like one bolt, one nut. We're gonna get this guy out. With that guy out, and I'm thinking our tie rod end right here, I think we'll be able to turn this wheel enough and hopefully get this axle out. So I'm gonna unbolt those and we'll see where we're at. They went easy on us today. It was all 17mm. Everything came out clean. There's our bolt and nut for the bottom of the coilover. Here's the nut for the tie rod end. I used a brass hammer to smack the threads on the bottom of this and pop it out. So now our wheel moves nice and free. And with this moving nice and free, again, it's going to be pretty tough to do one-handed, but I'm thinking we should have enough room to bop this the rest of the way out. Wish me luck. Okay, so I tried and I tried, and I wiggled and I wiggled. I need more room. So we're going to take off this nut right down here on the lower ball joint. Now I should mention the tie rod and the ball joint usually have a little cotter pin, but we're missing these, so I'm going to find a couple laying around when we put this all back together. But our lower ball joint, once this thing is disattached, we should be able to pull this whole assembly forward, and then we'll definitely have room to get this axle out. Alright, that was exhausting. So I got that nut loose, but that ball joint was stuck, so with a little help from my friends, first one being a ball joint remover, second one being a crowbar, I managed to make some room here. Now that this guy can move all over, there is nothing stopping us from pulling this side out. As you can see, this thing is just hanging. Our upper control arm's hanging out. Look at that, the axle just popped out. That thing was in really bad shape. So I'm going to take off what we got here, and then we're going to go to the back and take out the rest of this thing. So, as you can see, since we have that ball joint and tie rod end off, we can just push this whole spindle out of the way, support it on a jack stand. That gives us a ton of room here, so that actually ended up being the smart move. I can get my crowbar out of the way here, and then call on the help of another friend, my 3-jaw puller on a slide hammer. Now this is almost key for an axle, especially if you don't have room to get underneath this thing. So you take your 3 jaws, you're going to grab that other end of that, what they call the CV shaft here. Try to get a good look, and we're gonna rack this weight back, and hopefully we pop that spindle out. Now I have our new one here and ready to go. Hopefully we don't lose a whole lot of fluid in this. I know the last one I did on a CVT, we dumped about 8 quarts, so I'm gonna put a little towel down here just in case. Wish me luck. Alright, so I didn't put a towel down. I winged it, and we got lucky. We didn't lose any fluid. Now, if you're taking this whole thing off in one piece, you're probably going to have to push down on this control arm here, because it's not really going to fit through this hole. But since we only had the one piece, there was really nothing to it. But now, to get this new one in, since we don't want to disassemble it, I'm going to push this control arm here. I'm going to push it down, and that's going to give me just enough room. Or maybe I could just push this guy forward. I might just push this guy forward. Either way, we got to slip the axle, this bar, we have to slip it through here. And then we're going to want to line the thing up, make sure it's nice and straight, and bop it into the transmission. It should really be nothing to it. So that went really easy too. I ended up taking the bottom of our coilover strut here, kind of balanced it on the control arm, managed to slip the bar up through. I got it lined up in the back. Now you want to make sure that those gears line up before you do anything, but make sure it's nice and lined up. Push it in as far as you can, and then what I'll usually do is I'll take this little nut here, get it right up against the threads, and again, most important, make sure this thing is lined up straight. Tap it here with a hammer. You shouldn't have to tap very hard. Actually, tap it very lightly. Should pop it right back into place. So, at this point, we're actually in pretty good standing. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to slide this guy back over, take this nut off here, and we're going to slide the axle through our spindle and our bearing there. Once that's done, we're just going to bolt this back up in the same order that we took it off. Really nothing to it. If you guys have any questions, anything you want to ask me, please leave a comment. I do enjoy doing this stuff, and I know there's a couple things I didn't quite go over, like the process of our ball joint remover. So if that's anything of interest, please let me know, and thanks for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.